If you haven't heard of this game yet, you're living under a rock because it's one of the highest selling game franchises of all time, selling almost 105 million copies across all of its games to date. It's known as Biohazard in Japan. It was conceptualized in 1993 based off the Japan-only horror title Sweet Home. The first game was released in 1996, a few years before its competitor Silent Hill. Since then, the series has seen massive critical, commercial, and financial success, with 9 main series titles, 6 remakes, and 13 spin-off games, 2 of which are canon. It was even popular enough to warrant multiple live-action movies and at least 3 CGI films, but we don't really talk about those. Unless we're talking about Vendetta, that one's fine. So with the latest installment of the franchise, Resident Evil 8, coming out in May of this year, I decided that I wanted to make a bit of a retrospective of the entire series up to now, going over the story, gameplay, and everything that happens within the game for the past 2 decades. The way I've decided to do this is instead of reviewing each game in the order it was released in, I've decided to review each game in order of its timeline significance. I know that there are other videos out there that summarize the plot of the Resident Evil games, but they kind of skip over a couple of details and I really wanted to get into it. Also, since this will take longer, I've split the videos into parts, with this one focusing on Resident Evil 0 and 1 respectively. Final warning, this is a gameplay and story synopsis. Everything is getting spoiled here. If you had any plans on playing the game, do not watch this video. This is mostly a recap, and as meme-filled as it's going to be, you're going to get everything that was in the story or intended to be told in the story. Not that there was much to begin with. Anyway, grab your popcorn, get your juice. This is Resident Evil 0 and the first episode of Games from Zero. Although it wasn't actually released till much later, the concept of Resident Evil 0 was actually created not long after the original game. Plans for a sequel were thought of not even a year after the original game's release, and soon after, a prototype of the game for the N64 was made. The game was finally released November 12, 2002 for the GameCube to mostly positive reception. Although that positive reception is not coming from me, as it is currently my least favorite Resident Evil game. This may or may not be a hot topic for some people, but personally, putting aside the fact that it is a 2002 game, I've played other Resident Evil games that are old and have enjoyed them a lot more than I have this one. But nonetheless, I'll get into why I don't like this game later. Quick side note, the first part of this game was recorded on the Xbox, don't kill. Please note I had to re-record and edit the start of the video, so if it looks and sounds like this...
Looking good, dog. This freaking camera.
The game starts off with Star Wars style scrolling text that asks questions that the game itself does not have answers to. Cut to a scene of the train where we see that all the kids from Polar Express grew up to have very successful lives. Unfortunately, they made one mistake. They let the hot chocolate get cold.
Never ever let it go!
In response to a series of disappearances in the Arklay Mountains, Bravo Team, a detachment of Raccoon City Special Tactics and Rescue Service, otherwise known as S.T.A.R.S, show up about 2 hours later in a helicopter, and because it's a helicopter in a video game, it crashes.
Say again. Tombstone, are you taking fire? Give me a sit rep.
It's here where we're introduced to our main character, Rebecca Chambers, who makes Reed from Criminal Minds look like a freaking chump because not only is she in this universe's version of SWAT at age of 18, she's not even qualified to be there, being assigned to the team's medic because of her expertise in... botany? The team stumbles upon 2 dead MPs in a jeep who they discover were transporting convicted war criminal Billy Cohen. Why they were transporting him alone with no convoy in the middle of the night, I have no idea. Don't ask. It's Resident Evil. Despite having reason to assume that Billy's armed, they all decide to split up, where Rebecca stumbles upon the train. So this was supposed to be a part where I compared the intro from Resident Evil 0 to Resident Evil, but all the stuff that I put into the video got deleted for some reason. I don't know why. I can't change it or it will mess everything else up. So here's just the gameplay from the start. Sorry.
What just happened? I thought they were dead.
In this scene here, Rebecca demonstrates her worthiness of being a S.T.A.R.S team member by showing her complete lack of situational awareness.
soldiers outside.
Oh, I see. You're with S.T.A.R.S. I've already worn handcuffs.
I could shoot, you know.
Is God here?
You know what?
This is Edward. Edward is the side character in a Resident Evil game. This means that despite being in front of a fucking medic, he fucking dies! Oh shit, there are fucking dogs out the window. This is immediately followed by a scene in which team leader Enrico calls Rebecca to reinform her about their mission.
Billy Cohen killed as many as 23 people. Over.
28
People.
23 people.
25.
People.
Billy Cohen killed as many as
22. People.
23 people. Over.
21.
23 people. Over. Stay alert, Rebecca. You wouldn't think twice before killing you.
I don't need your help. I can handle this on my own. And don't call me little girl.
All right, Miss Do-It-Yourself. What should I call you?
These what, sir? These nuts!
She throws a tantrum like the little girl that she is, and then she goes upstairs to meet what I consider to be the worst enemy in the entire game. Officially known as the Mediocre Marcus, who I have not so affectionately dubbed the Cum Man.
You never see it come back.
They're an ugly gray-colored amalgamation of leeches that attack the train in the beginning of the game. They're not really scary at all, they're just extremely annoying. They take a lot of damage, and they deal a lot of damage, which is fine for a Resident Evil game, but they have the range of the pre-nerf 725. Not to mention they stumble forward when they attack you, so avoiding their attacks isn't really much of an option. Not only that, you move like Data 5000 trying to get that last hit on Kimball's Slice, so avoiding attacks, yeah, it's not really going to happen that much. Not only that, if you don't kill them with the proper weapon, they'll actually explode and turn into a bunch of miniature leeches that move up to you and attack you, even if you haven't killed them yet. You know they're supposed to be Village Sponge enemies, but unlike Lickers who can't see you, they can see you and hear you at all times. So just avoid them, idiot. Just try not to go down the hallway. Yeah, that's really not a good strategy all the time. They're placed in locations where you need to go, so if you're going down a hole with them, you're just taking damage. Anyway, enough of that. Billy shows up and pretends to be an ex-pain, and the two of them partner up, making this the first main installment where you have a permanent partner character. Unfortunately, this is a secret of mana. Even though the game is released in the GameCube, which had multiple controller ports, you cannot have another person control the other character. However, you can switch to the next character by just pressing a button. Also, since the game uses a fixed camera system, you can just move the other character with the right stick at any time. Outside the train window, and they see the Sephiroth wannabe standing on the top of a mountain like anime villain waiting for his arc to start. Being so dogshit, even the train wants to get out of there and leave, so it starts moving on its own. You find a note downstairs that says the switch you need to access the doors on the top of the train. No explanation as to why it's there. So you head up there to fix it, and you need to connect two wires in the middle of a storm, and because that's obviously stupid, you get nutted on. A bunch of stuff happens here that I couldn't be asked to record. Basically, whoever you sent up to fix the wires gets locked in a room, and the other person, in my case Rebecca, has to go to the other side of the train to get an ice pick to get them out. Upon retrieving this ice pick and a shotgun, you walk outside and you get the very first boss fight.
Time for crab. That's not a crab.
The boss is a complete pushover. You shoot him a couple times with the shotgun and he just kind of moves back and forth a little bit, and then he dies. Anyway, you kill him and you get this back scratchers, you know, get Billy out. A bunch of other stuff happens I didn't really bother to record. Finally, after way too long, you get to a cutscene where you see Resident Evil bad guys, William Birkin and Albert Wesker. Now, this cutscene is actually an allegory. You see, Birkin is the fans asking questions about the story, while Wesker is Capcom.
That's irrelevant.
Upon getting to the front of the train, they realize that it's about to crash, so you have 3 minutes to send one of them back to activate a time lock so they can make the train stop. To do this, for some reason, you have to do quick math, activate the time lock. Also, if you're playing Rebecca, you get this scene.
Bird. No.
Well, maybe next time you think before you try to resurrect your mother, huh?
This is wrong!
The train crashes anyway because it's Resident Evil, and despite being literally launched from a speeding train, both characters are completely fine with literally no injuries. They swim through the sewers that this game was pulled out of, and then they go to the training center.
Please be silent as we reflect upon our company motto.
Devotion inspires bravery. Bravery inspires sacrifice. Sacrifice leads to death. So, feel free to kill yourself.
We are informed by Femboy Sephiroth that he's actually the reincarnation of Dr. Marcus, an Umbrella scientist who was murdered by Dr. Birkin in Wesker. Obviously, he's upset, so he's come back to get his revenge. Cut back to gameplay, and now we're in the training center, an area very similar to the mansion in Resident Evil 1, probably because it's a layout that they like to use a lot apparently. Walk around exploring for a bit before you find a crank in an elevator. The crank is supposed to be for the elevator, but because Rebecca has all the strength of a 5-year-old, she's not able to do it. Upon getting to the top of the elevator, she's molested by a bug.
Is that a bird? Is that a real bird or is it a fake bird? It's a real bird.
A whole lot more nothing happens for a bit, and then you find a giant pool with keys in it. And then Rebecca gets molested by another bug. Did I forget to turn off incognito mode? Gosh darn it. This next boss fight is also kind of a pushover, primarily because you have a grenade launcher now, so it's not really that long of a fight. Plus, I don't know how Rebecca's getting shot with these launchers and just being completely fine afterwards. Don't worry about it. After that, it's right on back to the good old Resident Evil gameplay loop of pushing things, grabbing inane objects, and solving puzzles that'll make a second grader want to cry. I certainly wonder how to open up this door. Certainly couldn't have anything to do with the fact that there's a painting of a guy setting a lantern on fire, and the fact that this character has a freaking lighter, despite the fact that it was a president and a fucking god boy. Fucking done. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not done. I'm not done yet. Because now I have to talk about something else I don't like about this shit. The inventory system in this game makes me want to die. Now, let me explain myself. Any horror game worth its salt has some form of inventory restriction. You can't really be scared in a horror game if your character has enough guns and ammo to supply a small army in the Middle East. Most games decide to ramp up tension by simply restricting the amount of ammo you have, so you have to place all of your shots and you actually have to aim, which means you have to look at the giant monstrosity chasing you, holy shit. Other games like Silent Hill won't necessarily restrict how much ammo you can carry, but it will be harder to find ammo, and even when you do, there are usually too many enemies on screen for you to kill, or they just take too much damage. And then of course there are the horror games where you don't have a weapon. Run. But Resident Evil decides that all of these are a good option. I'll take it all. The system has been like this since the first game came out. And despite the fact that it sounds like I don't like the system, there's actually nothing wrong with it, primarily because of one little upside. What is that upside, you might ask? Well, I'll be happy to show you. This is a save room from Resident Evil 1. This is a save room from Resident Evil 2. This is one from 3, Code Veronica, Revelations, Revelations 2, and 7. Notice anything similar? That's right, all of these games have item boxes. These are boxes that transcend space and time to deliver you any item that you place inside of it. Want to shove some weed in your pants, but you can't because the shotgun's taking up too much space? Well, no worries. Head up to the sold item box right here and put the shotgun in. Bam, bam, done. Simple, move on, game of the year, here we go. Not to mention, in some Resident Evil games, you can actually increase the amount of inventory space that you have via pickups. So what about Resident Evil 0? What's the problem with this one's inventory system? Well, it doesn't have inventory boxes. Inventory boxes and inventory upgrades are completely absent from this game. Instead, you know what you have? A feature that should have been in literally every other Resident Evil game, the ability to drop items. Not just drop items, drop them and pick them back up again. The problem with this is, since you only have 12 slots total between both characters aren't always next to each other at the same time, which means all of your inventory isn't always accessible, and you can't upgrade your space. Not to mention, every single item you pick up will take up space, along with some items taking up 2 slots, including items that you need to progress the story. Means that a lot of times you'll have to drop something, run all the way back to the main area of the game, pick something else back up that you needed, run all the way back, put it in the puzzle, get the puzzle piece, run all the way back.
Then you want me to run back here so you can say, "Arr, SpongeBob, and you're spending all me money." And then I'll say, "But Mr. Krabs, I'm only doing what you said." Then you'll say, "We're not talking about this or this. We're talking about this."
This became so unbearable for me that I literally stopped playing the game for about 2 months while recording and ended up just buying it again on PC for the sole fact that I could do 2 things, mod and cheat. Yes, I cheated in this game. I literally do not care. You might think to yourself, well then you just ruined the experience for yourself. How can you enjoy the game? You just said you can't have fear and horror game and blah blah blah. I don't care. I'd like to think that I'm smart enough to understand when something's being ruined by cheats or not. So when I say that I've played Resident Evil 2 original with cheats on and still had a blast of a time, enough to play it 4 times in a row, not the remake by the way, which I played 20 times over, I'd like to believe that I know how something is supposed to feel when it's played the way it's supposed to be. So when I say that if I did not put cheats on, I literally would not have been able to bring myself to finish the game, I mean it. That and I had to get a door skip mod because if not, I'd have to deal with the insanely long door loading animations that should have been taken out when the game was remastered, as they were only there in the original version to serve as load gates. So yeah, that's my little rant. Anyway, let's get back to this freaking boring ass game. After fixing time itself, committing war crimes, solving puzzles, not to mention having to deal with this shit,
With the sticky hand.
and playing the world's greatest chess match, I find a journal that details some of the events that occurred before Dr. Marcus's death, such as the progress he made on the leeches and the progenitor virus that you see in the game, as well as a backstory for Umbrella, a pharmaceutical company started by Birkin and Spencer as a cover-up operation, as well as to provide funds for their experiments. You fix some statues with no form of adhesive whatsoever, put them on a scale, a door opens, and then you go downstairs to find
the giant enemy spider.
I'm almost there.
I mean, that's a pretty large
Glad I
event.
could
I'm
be of
pretty sure they
service.
could both
Time to
through
go
it.
inside.
Grubhub Perks give you deals on the food you love. The kind of deals that make your
Mr. I'll Never Be a Memory over here is upset that you're in his house, so he sends a bunch of monkeys possessed with the angered spirit of Harambe after you to kick you down a hole. Back into cutscene land, and William and Wesker are both saying their parting words before leaving this game forever. Birkin's gonna go blow up the mansion, and Wesker's gonna go join Alpha Team. In other words,
That's irrelevant.
Rebecca's been reduced to an NPC that needs your help. You know what that means. Oh my god, shut up. Billy saves Rebecca and then tells her about the time he served in Vietnam. Basically, they were sent on a scouting mission only to not find whatever they were looking for, and because they were so pissed, they just started shooting a bunch of black people for no reason. Don't tell Twitter about this. I need the next game to release. Please don't tell them. Wait a minute. Capcom's based in Japan. They can't get canceled. Maybe you shouldn't write the code of the briefcase on the briefcase, you dingus. This next part, you finally meet the Hunters, which are actually pretty effective enemies. They're the only ones who scared me the entire game, so much so that I actually forgot that I was cheating and thought I needed to reload my gun. How do I
Press
reload?
the square button.
Oh wait, I don't need to reload the gun, I have infinite ammo. I'm stupid. You set some animals on fire, find the room where he killed Mario, deal with more of these shitheads, and then you play some piano. Covered with dust. Play the piano.
What's my man's playing? Hold on, let me turn up the stream.
After you recreate Cast of Amontillado and collect 3 stone tablets, you finally get this penis building to go up, and then you go over to church to fight Palumu from Monster Hunter. This guy is a bit more challenging because he can fly around now, unlike the other bosses, but he's still not that difficult in terms of other Resident Evil bosses, so he's pretty easy to take down. Oh, and by the way, this is where my hatred for the inventory system started to grow, because you actually need the hook shot in order to progress past this area. I didn't know that until I looked at the walkthrough, Problem was, I had already dropped my hookshot somewhere else in the mansion because I didn't think I needed it and it was taking up inventory space. So I had to run back through the training center looking through every single room just so I could find it. I lost like an hour and a half of footage to this. After you beat COVID-19, you'll hookshot up to the laboratory where Dr. Marcus was creating the leeches. And also you find a leech capsule that somebody had a lot of fun with that thing, huh? Oh, and how could I forget? More backtracking. Once you get Rebecca into the laboratory, you actually have to go back because there was a chemical compound in a canister and an optional room in the mansion that you needed to go get. And mind you, you wouldn't have known this because the game doesn't tell you. But hey, at least you get to put that biochemistry degree to use. Once you go back into the lab, you get this cutscene where Rebecca finds a photograph of James Marcus, who is supposedly Marcus's grandson, child. It doesn't matter, it's never brought up again.
That's irrelevant.
Oh, did I mention that this is possibly the worst grenade launcher in all of gaming? Bro! After picking up more items and committing even more war crimes, you finally meet back with Rebecca at a train station. You power the train back up, and then one of the monkeys from earlier just jumped down to knock Billy over the ledge, making you lose half of your inventory space and anything that he was carrying. The game gives you no warning for this, and it's kind of upsetting. Also, the leeches somehow disconnect the train again. I don't know how they did this. They're a bunch of leeches.
But for now, I have this.
This is possibly the scariest thing I've seen in Resident Evil. It's not Nemesis, but I don't like how it looks like it's smiling. I don't like.
Hi.
Oh, what the fuck?
Exaggerated swagger of a black teen. I don't see the point.
This man tried to slide in my DMs. I think this is a good time to bring up something else I don't like about this game. It doesn't try to be scary through its sound or its music. Other horror games, including other Resident Evil games, have some form of background music or ambient noises in the background to make you feel some form of nervous. Things like door slamming, screaming in the background, wood creaking, anything to make you feel like the world around you is active and you're just part of it. Resident Evil 0 has none of these sounds. Even in a place like the factory, sounds you would expect to hear, like chains clinking, the whir of unkept machines, anything that would sound scary. Instead, all you get is some distant wind sounds and maybe a rumble or two because there's a storm in the background. And it's not even loud. There's barely even any music in the game. The most you'll get is during a boss fight or... Finally, after a little bit, and I mean a little bit of exploring, you get a cutscene with Enrico. He's by himself and he doesn't know where the rest of his team is. Yeah, you remember those guys? Bravo team? Yeah, he doesn't know where they are either.
That's unfortunate.
He wants to start heading to the mansion, but Rebecca wants to stay and look for Billy, and he lets her for some reason. I guess you just heard that emotional story piano.
Don't worry, I'll catch up with you.
Rebecca... All right. Just be careful.
I never saw him again.
The next day, the motherfucker was dead.
Enrico leaves and you take the elevator key that he left behind. You head forward to unlock a door, and then you finally get an actually good boss fight. Meet the Proto-Tyrant, the only other boss in the entire game who actually got close to killing me. This guy is terrifying and he's pretty freaking lethal.
3-zip, he's gonna be ready for me in the second game.
He's still pretty standard for a Resident Evil boss though. Run around, shoot him a couple times, kill him, and then you... Wait. Factory complete. That's it? That was it. That was the factory section. I have no time for... Oh! Oh yeah, and the elevator key from Enrico? The elevator leads up to the crash train at the start of the game. Meaning Enrico walked all the way from the forest down who knows how many miles of tracks, somehow found some random elevator key, and all the while didn't notice that his entire team was missing. Actually, you know what? Why do I even care?
That's irrelevant.
Despairing over 29 still being a territorial goose. Billy gets washed away in a river. You restore power to the factory. There's a puzzle here, but you can't solve it yet because Rebecca is weak. Then you find Billy, who's somehow washed up on top of the rafters.
What could have done this?
They must have been used as test subjects in Marcus's research. He must have kept messing around with the mother virus.
Billy?
Once you bring Billy back, you finally get the rest of your inventory and you go and solve this puzzle, which is actually a bit more challenging than the other ones, but it doesn't matter to me because I found out that my recording looked like this. What is it doing? Oh my god, has it been doing this entire time? Oh, fuck. After solving that puzzle, you actually get a second prototype fight. It might seem like it's a more harder or challenging fight because the area you have to fight him in is smaller, but you actually have access to both of your characters at this time, so the fight's over in like 5 seconds. Also, here's the frog enemy, who doesn't appear at any other point in the game. He doesn't do anything. I don't even think the attack he does damages you, and then he just jumps off.
So guys, we did it.
After fighting off more rapist bugs and doing more chemistry, you finally get to the final boss cutscene. I should take this time to mention that Marcus doesn't even want Billy and Rebecca dead because of anything personal. He's just mad that they're in his house.
10 years ago, Spencer had me assassinated.
Be advised, your teammate got their ass kicked.
And the world will burn in an inferno of hate.
Marcus turns to a giant leech monster because of course he does, it's Resident Evil. And then the fight starts. Or at least it's supposed to start. What? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Game. Controller. Controller.
Let me
please work.
keep you safe.
Yeah. My controller just didn't work for the first part of the fight, so I had to use my mouse and keyboard. So I don't have a legitimate opinion on this fight. Don't know if it's hard or easy. I just kind of got through it somehow. You kill the Queen Leech, that's what it's called by the way. You grab some keys and head up on this giant escalator, but of course the Queen Leech isn't actually dead.
Okay, I was gone for a minute, but I'm back now.
This is the final boss fight, and it's actually pretty good. They find out that the Queen Leech is weak to sunlight for some reason, so they decide that they need to go open all the windows. You can't actually kill the boss in this fight. You need to run around and simply stagger it so that Rebecca has enough time to open the windows. So it's pretty interesting that you can't just outright kill it. Even cheats don't help you. The windows open, but of course that isn't enough, so Billy finds a magnum.
Oh yeah, one more thing.
That was a hollow point round. Queen Leech and Marcus both die, Billy and Rebecca escape, and the training facility blows up.
Skip it up and down.
Cuts at the top of a hill, Billy finally gets his freaking handcuffs off. Rebecca takes Billy's dog tags, stating that she'll use them as evidence that he died during the attack. Speaking of Billy, I forgot to mention how ludicrous it is that he somehow got framed for the murder of the villagers when there were 2 other people in his squad, but whatever.
That's irrelevant.
Billy goes off to never be mentioned or seen in another Resident Evil game,
Irrelevant.
and Rebecca heads off to the mansion of the first game. And with that, credits roll, and we're done. Wait a minute, what is this? Leech Hunter mode. Can now play as Wesker. Son of a... Beating the game on any difficulty grants you Wesker mode and Leech Hunter mode. Leech Hunter is basically a time attack mode where you grab these leeches from the middle of the game and you just put them in places. I don't know, I guess it's cool. I never really played it that much. Wesker mode, however, is far more interesting, and it's just like what it sounds like. You get to play as Wesker. It's exclusive to the remake of the game for obvious reasons. It came out after Resident Evil 5, which this version of Wesker is from. Nothing changes story-wise or gameplay-wise for Rebecca, but Billy's model is obviously replaced by Wesker. Also, you get some new abilities. You can actually run! It's pretty much only in a straight line and you can hardly change your direction, but it still makes playing the game a lot faster. You also get this new attack that one-shots any enemy you look at. Normal enemies. It doesn't work on bosses and it unfortunately doesn't work on the mimicries. I found that out the hard way.
I'm not looking. gun. She fucking dead.
Also, if you beat the game in like 4 hours, you get a rocket launcher and machine gun. I would play the game again to unlock that, but
I don't want to do this no more.
And that's it. That's Resident Evil 0. If you're wondering why I just kept listing off events instead of giving you any form of story, it's because there was none. This game's main purpose was to serve as a backdrop for what happened to Resident Evil 1 and explain what happened to Bravo Team, but it kind of fails in doing that as well. You learn how the progenitor virus came about, but you don't learn that much about it, and you don't even know what happened to Bravo Team because there were 3 other members who we never see ever again, and we don't know what happened to them. The co-pilot and the other 2 who were next to Rebecca. We know what happens to the pilot because we see what happens at the beginning of the game, but we don't know about the other 2. Not to mention the training facility is never brought up again, even though it blew up. But hey, the story of Resident Evil is never what's supposed to be the draw, right? It's supposed to be the gameplay, the feel, the horror. Oh yeah, see about that, this game is not scary at all. It has the tight corridors packed in, yeah, that's cool, but it doesn't have any enemies or enemy variety. There are only like 7 enemies in this game total, and 3 of them are the only ones you see. Remember the frog? Yeah, he's only seen once. The dog's only seen at the beginning of the game. The crow's only seen once. You get 3 enemies. The normal zombies, the bugs, and the mimicries. At the end of the day, 0 is just a mediocre Resident Evil game. Nothing really too charming about it or memorable. It's just
irrelevant.
Hey everybody, this is Alternate Echo. I originally wanted to make this video 2 games in one video, like I said in the beginning, but this game almost freaking broke me. It took me so long to beat it that I couldn't keep up the schedule. Also, I was using a terrible video editing software, and so I gotta give a little shout out to Filmora, even though this video isn't sponsored by them, because thanks to this freaking editor that I was actually able to finish the video. So much stupid stuff happened with that last editor. Clips got deleted, whole sections of footage was lost. Every time I tried to shift something, it would move everything around. Filmora made it really easily, so you gotta give a shout out to those guys. Thank you so much. If you wanna, give me a little sponsor, I'm here, you can hit me up. Anyway, this was an extremely long project, so if you've made it to the end so far, I can't say anything else but thank you, because oh my goodness, I really hope this was worth it. This took almost 3 months to make, and this last 2 weeks of editing was a whole drive moment, so thank you so much. Feels good to finally be done with this, and I hope to get the next episode of Games from Zero out soon, and once Resident Evil 1 is out, hopefully I'll be able to get Resident Evil 2 and 3 in the same video like I planned originally. So if you enjoyed it and you want to see me actually get better at making content like this, or you just want to see me rant even more, then please like the video, share it to somebody. I don't really care. Just thank you for staying this long. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode of Games from Zero. Echo out.